How's it rolling, Autobots? It's me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoilers Show, y'all. This is about to be a breakdown for Michael Bay's very first Transformers movie all the way back from 2007. A movie that would rake in $709 million worldwide and launch two massively successful cinematic universes. So, click on your seatbelts and let's jump into this thing, shall we? The movie starts with a visual of the Allspark, this movie's main MacGuffin, floating off in space, with the Allspark itself having been inspired by the Energon cubes from the Transformers animated series. This MacGuffin wasn't originally intended to be called the Allspark at all, but instead the Matrix of Leadership, after that powerful Cybertronian artifact from the Transformers lore. However, due to the Matrix of Leadership sounding too close to the Matrix film franchise, the name was changed to the Allspark. The Matrix of Leadership would not be introduced into the Bay universe until the film sequel, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Optimus Prime does the expository voiceover during this sequence, voiced by the legend himself, Peter Cullen, who voiced the character in the Transformers cartoons for years. One of the movie's producers actually wanted Optimus to be voiced by actor Liam Neeson instead, but Michael Bay thought that Cullen was just too damn good to be replaced. But they did ultimately model Optimus Prime's body language off of Liam Neeson though, so that's kind of cool. But Cullen, of course, is not the only voice actor from the 80s Transformers cartoon to be featured prominently in this movie, as Starscream performer Charlie Adler previously played the Autobot Silverbolt in that animation. Then after the title card, we are brought to Qatar as Captain Lennox and his team of Army Rangers head back to their forward operations base. First Sergeant Patrick Donnelly brings up the Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park when reminiscing about cracking a cold beer and watching baseball, something that he has not done in a while since these Rangers have been deployed. But William Lennox is simply just looking forward to finally heading back home to meet his daughter for the very first time. And while the name of his daughter is never actually revealed in this movie, the Transformers movie novelization has actually named her Annabelle, in case you were wondering. However, after a brief glitchy video chat with both his wife and kid, the Ranger base is greeted by the arrival of the Decepticon Blackout, disguised as a Sikorsky MH-53J Pavlo 3. The character's 4500X can be seen on Blackout's helicopter form, numbers that director Michael Bay would actually slap onto his own personal jet alongside the symbol for the Autobots. And inside of Blackout is a hologram of a mustached soldier, performed by real-life Air Force Major Brian Reese, a man who straight up had to reschedule his wedding and honeymoon just to be included in this movie, something that his future spouse was probably super jazzed about, I'm sure. But hey, it's a Transformers movie, so what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna deny your husband the chance to be in a Transformers movie? Like, no, that's not gonna happen. That's like grounds for divorce. I'm sorry. Blackout actually wasn't originally intended to be the attacking Decepticon during this scene, as different names were floated over the course of development. Vortex of the Combaticons, Incinerator, and Soundwave were all also considered for this scene as well. And speaking of Soundwave, though the character would not appear in Michael Bay's Transformers franchise until Revenge of the Fallen, the classic Decepticon was actually also apparently considered to appear as the Celine Mustang cop car that attacks Sam later on in the movie. But that Decepticon would ultimately be named Barricade instead. However, Barricade would still maintain hints of Soundwave in his physiology, as out of Barricade would pop out the Minicon Frenzy, a character that is usually stored in Soundwave's body as one of his mini cassettes in the cartoon. But anyways, when Blackout attacks the base, we can hear the classic transforming sound effect from the Transformers cartoons in the background, which is a sound that Michael Bay sprinkled throughout the movie a few times to pay his respects to the OGs. And in order to extract information about the cube, Blackout heads straight to the military's mainframe and starts to initiate a download of their intel, but is stopped by some quick-thinking soldiers. And also, speaking of these soldiers, I have not seen a greater piece of American military marketing than Michael Bay's Transformers films, but that's mostly because the US military allowed the production to use over 300 airmen and a bunch of military vehicles in order to keep the production's budget from ballooning out of control, with their only stipulation being that the military get a free advance screening of the movie when the filming was over. And as part of their arrangement, the military allowed the production to film their MH-53 Pavlo, the C-17 Globemaster III, the A-10 Thunderbolt II, the F-117 Nighthawks, the C-130 Hercules, the AC-130 gunship, the MQ-1 Predator, the HH-53 Super Jolly Green Giant, and, of course, Air Force One. F-22s and the CV-22 Osprey can also be seen in this movie, with their first cinematic appearance being in Ang Lee's 2003 Hulk movie, a movie that I actually broke down not too long ago on this channel. But an interesting detail about Blackout's face, and the faces of a couple of Transformers in this film, is how a lot of them are roughly modeled after the emblems of their respective factions. Blackout's face resembles the Decepticon logo, as does Barricade's and Megatron's, while Optimus Prime and Bumblebee's faces look a lot like the Autobot logo. But right before the movie transitions to Sam, we see Blackout appear to eject one of their engines from out of their back, with that General Electric T-64 turbo shaft engine seemingly becoming the Decepticon Scorponok that buries itself in the sand. Then we are introduced to the hero of the film, Sam Witwicky, played by actor Shia Lebeouf, a man that Michael Bay was hesitant to cast due to him not exactly looking like a high school junior at the age of 20. But Shia would end up convincing Michael Bay otherwise by convincingly dressing the part during his audition. And while doing a presentation on his great-great-grandfather Archibald Witwicky, we can see Sam wearing a shirt with a cartoon alien on it, foreshadowing his own dealings with aliens in the film. And like great-great-grandpa, like great-great-grandson as well, because old man Archibald would get his ass blinded by Megatron in 1897, leaving the coordinates to the Allspark imprinted on his glasses. But of course, Shia LaBeouf does not know this, and he's trying to sell his ancestors' glasses on eBay so he can save up money for the brand new whip that his daddy promised him if he got good grades. And after barely scraping an A- from his terrible presentation, Sam and his father Ron head to Bobby Bolivia's used car lot, where an unimpressed Sam compares one of his cars to Steve Carell's 40-year-old Virgin. Bobby Bolivia is played by the late, great, and legendary Bernie Mac in his final film role before he would tragically pass away on August 9, 2008. And while Sam chats with Bobby, a sneaky Bumblebee pulls up to a yellow Volkswagen Beetle, the very same car that Bumblebee transforms into in the 80s Transformers TV show, as well as the standalone Bumblebee movie from 2018, starring Haley Steinfeld, the woman that football man Josh Allen stole from me in the dead of night. Instead of sticking to the cartoon's design, Michael Bay specifically had Bumblebee take the form of a Chevy Camaro in this film because he did not want people to start calling Bumblebee Herbie the Love Bug instead, which is a weird worry to have because ain't nobody thinking about that but you, buddy. Bumblebee then beats up the Beetle and shatters the glass of every car in the dealership, leading to his successful infiltration of the Witwicky household. And arriving back at his messy bedroom, we can see that Sam is a big fan of the rock genre, as evidenced by this skull poster for the song Fiend Club by the Misfits, as well as this poster over here for a July 19, 2003 concert for the band Sonic Youth. Sam then heads straight to eBay.com. Yes, eBay used to look like that. It was disgusting. And on eBay's homepage is an ad for the Xbox 360 video games Perfect Dark and Madden NFL 2006, right above another ad for Audrey Hepburn's Moon River song from 1961's Breakfast at Tiffany's. Meanwhile, the Ranger team surviving Blackout's carnage travel through the desert of Qatar, talking about their new alien adversary. And at the mention of the Decepticons' invisible force field, one of the soldiers say that invisible force fields are stuff that you would only find in comic books. A slight nod to the classic Transformers comics published by Marvel in the 1980s. But over in the States, Sam drives his totally normal Camaro to a public gathering where he wasn't invited. You know, like a cool kid. But instead of getting to flirt with Megan Fox's Mikaela, he's quickly told to get lost. But Bumblebee wasn't trying to hear all that mess and encourages Sam to drive Mikaela home by playing the 1984 song Drive by the band The Cars. Sam then listens to his demon car and scoops Mikaela up immediately. And as the two drive together, you can see a disco ball hanging over his dash, right next to a Bumblebee-style air freshener with the words biatch at the bottom. And while this is a goofy little gag, looking at these two items together makes me think that Bay put them there to point to Bumblebee's love for his lost metal planet of Cybertron, with Cybertron being represented by that disco ball. But Bumblebee, being the metal matchmaker that he is, pretends to break down while playing Sexual Healing by Marvin Gaye, followed by I Got You by James Brown. And as Mikaela looks under the hood, Sam checks out Mikaela's body like some type of teenage pervert. Megan Fox actually gained 10 pounds of muscle to prepare for all the movement that she had to do for the role, while Shia LaBeouf gained around 25 pounds of muscle at the gym for his role. and when Mikaela starts to bail, Bumblebee then plays the 1977 song Baby Come Back by Player and starts back up again, allowing for Sam to finally drive her home. And before she leaves, Mikaela randomly asks Sam if he thinks that she's shallow, to which Sam replies, "I think there's more than meets the eye with you," a nod to the Transformers' main slogan of more than meets the eye. Then later we are brought to Air Force One, where a totally non-suspicious boombox sits quietly under a man reading a USA Today newspaper. And on the front page of that paper are the words "US base attack disastrous," referencing Blackout's attack at the beginning of the movie. Then this boombox comes to life in the form of the Minicon Frenzy, whose name was previously considered to be Boombot early in production. And they also debated calling him Soundwave like those other Decepticons, or Soundbite for a time, but ultimately decided on Frenzy. And lying down in the president's cabin is, you guessed it, the president, but one whose voice is obviously inspired by former President George W. Bush. And after the president requests some ding-dongs, one of the stewardesses heads down to Air Force One's server room to get some, because that's where all presidents' ding-dongs are stored, in the server room, next to the presidential mainframe. She then drops one of these ding-dongs that lands right next to a Frenzy in hiding, with this Frenzy model straight up being a puppet that they created for the movie. Frenzy is the only character in the movie that is a mix of CGI and on-set puppetry, which is quite fun and did a lot to add to the realism and potential danger of all of his fighting scenes. Frenzy then proceeds to hack into the POTUS mainframe to try to secure more data on the location of both Megatron and the Allspark. And while he does, a bunch of classified files flash onto the screen, with some of the most notable files including NSA denies the Roswell incident, a reference to the famous conspiracy theory that an alien aircraft was seen in the sky in 1947 but was covered up by the government as debris from an Air Force spy balloon. Then we have Kennedy orders increased security during the Cuban Missile Crisis, dated October 31st, 1955, followed by a file dated February 20th, 1963, about Soviet Union leader Nikita Khrushchev demanding a recounting of the US extraterrestrial program, and another that says Nixon investigates extraterrestrial technology to supplement nuclear arsenal, which is quite interesting, and would explain why the Soviet Union wants a recounting of all that stuff. And following these is another that references President Ronald Reagan's Star Wars program, aka the Strategic Defense Initiative, a program proposed in 1983 by Reagan with the aim of defending the country from foreign nuclear missiles by using advanced technology like energy weapons, lasers, and satellites and whatnot. Then we see a file that seems to say Hoover Dam structure questioned, this movie's very first hint towards the Hoover Dam housing the Allspark and Megatron since the 1930s. However, Frenzy's hack would be interrupted by the US government's task force of nerds right as the same New York Journal article that Sam showed to his class about Archibald Witwicky pops up on the screen, tipping Frenzy to go find the Witwicky family once Barricade picks him up in his Decepticon-styled police car. And hearing word of the Air Force One attack, Defense Secretary John Keller instructs a group of military men to get the president to a bunker, with the man to his left actually being the son of a former president himself. That right there is Stephen Ford, the actor son of President Gerald Ford, who is known primarily for his role in the popular soap opera The Young and the Restless as Andy Richards. We then are brought back to the Witwicky household, where Bumblebee decides to dip in the middle of the night to attempt to send a signal out to the homies. Sam follows him and sees his 1997 second-generation Camaro transform for the very first time at a junkyard before getting chased by some nearby dogs. This dog chase scene is actually the very first scene that Shia LaBeouf shot for the film. And what's funny about this scene is, even after the director yelled cut during this chase sequence, one of the dogs would not stop chasing Shia despite being called off. But luckily, nobody was hurt, so we can all laugh about it now. Sam then gets arrested by the same police that he called to help him before we are sent back to the deserts of Qatar, where Lennox is stalked by Scorponok's tail before the Rangers are attacked. Scorponok's tail during this moment is actually another piece of practical puppetry used to establish realism before the CG model of Scorponok emerges from the sand to turn Sergeant Donnelly into a shish kebab. Scorponok then emerges from the sand again to attack the soldiers, and during the shot of the soldiers fleeing him, the fear on their faces was actually the the pure fear of the actors themselves, mostly because Michael Bay straight up detonated a primer cord only a few feet away from them and told them boys to run for their lives before their asses got cooked for real. So the fear of losing their lives added to the intensity of this moment, which is super hilarious. Lennox and his team finally run their asses into a local village where Lennox is forced to provide a credit card in order to connect to the Pentagon, a moment that Michael Bay threw into this movie after hearing a story from the 1983 invasion of Grenada, where a soldier had to make a long-distance call to the Pentagon after losing their comms device. And this moment was actually recreated in the 1986 movie Heartbreak Ridge. Meanwhile, former NSA analyst Maggie Madsden, played by Rachel Taylor, detects the Decepticon cyber frequency, facilitating their attacks on US military installations. So, her rebellious blonde ass makes a copy of this classified data and brings that data to her extremely talented hacker friend named Glenn Whitman, played by Anthony Anderson. The role of Glenn was actually originally offered to comedian Patton Oswalt, but due to Oswalt having another acting job booked at the time, he couldn't make it. Glenn seems to be a huge fan of the Washington Redskins football team, as he's seen wearing a Redskins lanyard when Maggie arrives at his doorstep with federal crimes to commit. And later on in the movie, we can also see him wearing a red Washington Redskins jersey. When the two enter Glenn's bedroom, they can see Glenn's cousin appearing to dance to The Focus by X5 on a Dance Dance Revolution dance pad. But what's really weird and slightly concerning, however, is how Glenn seems to have a brain in a jar on top of his desktop computer tower, which is quite odd, and I'm wondering if he did something illegal and murderous in the past. What is this brain? I don't understand. And while analyzing this Cybertronian data, we can see a deck of Bush cards, with each card in the deck having a picture of someone from Bush's cabinet, accompanied by a short little critique about their impact. And under that is the Iraqi Most Wanted deck of cards, featuring prominent members of Saddam Hussein's government, with Saddam Hussein being the ace of spades. But right when Glenn and Maggie start discovering details about Project Iceman and Sector 7, in come the FBI to arrest them for Maggie's data theft. Then the movie switches over to Sam, who was listening to Passion's Killing Floor by him when Bumblebee shows up to his house like the robo-stalker that he is, prompting Sam to call his homie Miles in fear. The dog that Miles is washing during their phone call is actually director Michael Bay's former Mastiff Mason, who unfortunately died in 2007. Michael Bay also included Mason in his 2001 film Pearl Harbor. Sam then immediately grabs his mother's bike and books it out of his house while being chased by Bumblebee. And during this chase, Sam completely wipes out in front of Mikaela as she sits outside of a Burger King with all of her hot female friends, insinuating that hot girls like Megan Fox eat Burger King on the regular basis, which is totally true and not just some paid advertisement for a movie. Move me? I gotta take that whole thing again. What the fuck? But while running away from Bumblebee, Sam, of course, runs into the big bad Barricade, disguised as a police car. But instead of protecting and serving, Barricade is here to punish and enslave, which he also decided to write on the side of his car form. And to accompany this enslavement theme are the words "Incorporated June 1865" under his Decepticon logo, the same month and year that slaves in Texas gained their freedom, with June 19th becoming known as Juneteenth. So to me, Barricade having that date on his car with his "to punish and enslave" motto implies that he's looking to enslave more people even after it was outlawed. A true crooked authoritarian figure. But ironically, atop Barricade's Decepticon symbol are the Latin words "Pacis quod Alcedonia" around it. Words that mean peace through calm, which is not what Decepticons are all about. Back in 1990, the character of Barricade was originally a pink and blue Decepticon Micromaster that transformed into a race car and was part of a racetrack patrol team of Decepticons back on Cybertron. And in the original series, the Transformer that morphed into a police car was actually an Autobot named Prowl. However, Michael Bay and his team decided to make the police car a villainous figure instead to subvert expectations. The character of Prowl was actually removed from Optimus Prime's team to make room for Barricade because of this. But anyways, Barricade then transforms into his giant Decepticon form and chases Sam and Mikaela until they run into Bumblebee and get inside of him. Then Pretty Handsome Awkward by the Used plays during their chase scene before Bumblebee drives to a remote location and drops the two off so he can box with Barricade properly. And as the two Transformers fight, Barricade sends Frenzy after Sam, eventually leading to Sam's pants falling off, revealing his Transformers-themed underwear, a fun nod to the original 80s toy designs. And after Mikaela rescues Sam from Frenzy, Sam launches Frenzy with a kick, causing Frenzy to let out a high-pitched version of the Wilhelm scream, which is super hilarious.
Not so tough without a head, are you?
Sam and Mikaela then approach Bumblebee, with Sam assuming that he was just some super advanced robot from Japan, which is partly true, as the Transformers toys originally came from the Japanese toy company Takara Tomy. And while attempting to communicate with Sam, Bumblebee uses his radio to speak, projecting the words XM satellite radio and the Columbia broadcast system in order for Sam to understand that. And when Sam asks Bumblebee what he was doing the other night, Bumblebee plays audio from Lieutenant Nyota Uhura from the original Star Trek TV show when she says, "Message from Starfleet," before playing an excerpt from Orson Welles' War of the Worlds broadcast from 1939 when we hear the words, "throughout the infinite vastness of space." Bumblebee would then transform back into a car before asking, "Any more questions you want to ask?" by playing a clip of John Wayne from the 1966 film El Dorado. The two then hop into Bumblebee once more, where Mikaela would verbally ask why Bumblebee willingly chose to be an old-ass Camaro, prompting this Autobot to kick those rude-ass kids out of his car for being so damn disrespectful. But Bumblebee would correct this by quickly scanning another Camaro, transforming from a second-generation 1977 Camaro to a fifth-generation 2006 Camaro concept car, a fresh new car that the production literally had to build from scratch within a 30-day period, as there were no available 2006 Chevy Camaros to buy outright at the time. Like, they straight up just tore apart some Pontiac GTOs and covered it with the molds of conceptual Camaro designs from General Motors. But anyways, after this transformation, Bumblebee brings the kids to Griffith Observatory so they can all observe the arrival of Bumblebee's Autobot buds from outer space, with Jazz crash landing in what looks like Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. Ironhide, who landed in some random family's pool, is greeted by a little girl holding a My Little Pony stuffed animal, with My Little Pony being another property owned by Hasbro along with Transformers. Ratchet, on the other hand, lands somewhere in the streets, where one of the kids that hears that crash compares this meteor event to the 1998 film Armageddon. Then, when Ironhide, Ratchet, Jazz, and Optimus all assemble and reunite with Bumblebee, they each introduce themselves, with Ironhide whipping out his cannons and asking Sam if he's feeling lucky, punk, when he does, a reference to the 1971 film Dirty Harry, starring Clint Eastwood. And when Optimus introduces Bumblebee, Bumblebee plays Second to None by Styles of Beyond on his speakers. Optimus then projects a hologram around Sam and Mikaela and tells them of their past war on Cybertron, showing them a glimpse of Megatron for the very first time. Megatron's design in this movie is a vast departure from the Generation 1 Megatron from the 80s. However, there was some concept art made early in the production process that imagined him more like his cartoon counterpart, with the intention of him turning into a tank instead of a giant Walter P-38 pistol like he did back in the day. But in this movie, they had Megatron turn into a Cybertron jet instead, which is way cooler than both of those other things in my opinion. Optimus Prime's hologram details Megatron's absolute brutality as he spears an Autobot from afar without mercy. In the Transformers novelization, Megatron was actually quite the savage, choosing to literally feed off of the inner spark of his vanquished foes like some type of vampire or something. But we do not see this happen in the actual movie due to time constraints. After telling Sam about Megatron imprinting the coordinates of the cube onto his great-great-grandpappy's glasses, Sam and Mikaela rush back to Sam's house in order to find those glasses. Sam's parents, hearing a bunch of commotion, head upstairs to tell their son to keep it down while he's jorking it in their house. And while they do, you can see that Sam has plans for building a half-pipe of his own, showing Sam's love for skateboarding, even though we never actually see Sam do any skateboarding in any of these Transformers movies. But Sam's parents' assumptions jump jump from Sam Jorkin-it to Sam Porkin-it as Mikaela emerges from her hiding place to make herself known. And when she does, we can see a poster for the band Green Day to the right and another poster for the band Rise Against to the left. But before Sam's parents can get to know Mikaela better, in comes Agent Seymour Simmons and Sector 7 to take Sam Witwicky away. Agent Simmons is of course excellently played by actor John Turturro, and he's a character that Turturro said he based on director Michael Bay himself, which is hilarious considering how over the top this character is. And as Simmons confronts the Witwicky family, he refers to their Chihuahua Mojo as their Taco Bell dog, a reference to the Taco Bell's Chihuahua mascot from the late 90s. But speaking of Sector 7, that term was actually first used in the very first episode of the 1996 cartoon Beast Wars Transformers, and is actually the first piece of dialogue in that series, although it refers to a specific sector of a spaceship rather than a top secret organization. But Michael Bay decided to adapt that term for his movie nonetheless.
In Sector 7!
Detecting a strong Energon signature off of Sam and Mikaela, the two are detained by Sector 7, who ask them about their experience with aliens on their ride back to their base. And trying to play dumb, Sam brings up the 1982 classic E.T. the Extraterrestrial, but Simmons is not amused. But in comes Optimus Prime and his gang of Autobots, here to spring Sam and Mikaela from captivity. And when the Autobots magnetically yoink the agent's weapons away, you can see actor Brian Stapanek in the driver's seat get hit in the temple with one of the weapons before grabbing his face in pain. This was actually a 100% genuine reaction from Brian himself, as one of those rubber guns actually did hit him in the head after Michael Bay yoinked all of those guns with bungee cords, something that Brian actually tried to warn Michael Bay about before it actually happened, which is super frustrating. But anyways, with the tables turned on Sector 7, Mikaela has Agent Simmons disrobe for threatening to jail her car thief of a father for life. And when he does, we see that Simmons wears a Superman parody of a crest on his undershirt, reppin' Sector 7, a perfect reflection of Simmons' own hero complex. However, Agent Arwen from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody calls for backup like a little bitch and forces Sam, Mikaela, and the Autobots to flee and hide. And while hiding under a bridge, Sam and Mikaela accidentally fall, causing Bumblebee to leap into action and catch them, with the classic Transformers transforming sound effect playing in the background when he does. But unfortunately, Sector 7's backup would subdue Bumblebee and arrest the kids anyway, forcing Optimus and his gang to back off for a bit as they secure the glasses. Meanwhile, Secretary Keller is briefed by Sector 7 on the alien nature of these attacks. And during his briefing, the Beagle 2 Mars rover that went missing after it was launched on December 2003 is mentioned, with the movie revealing that it was never actually lost, but ended up actually transmitting 13 seconds of footage of Decepticon activity on Mars. In real life, it would not be until January 2015 that NASA would discover their lost Beagle 2 rover on the surface of Mars, with its solar panels having failed to fully open up. This Mars footage in the movie is actually the very first piece of footage that Michael Bay shot for the movie, and it was footage used in the very first teaser for the movie as well. After being caught up to speed, Keller assembles all the main characters of the movie to the secret Sector 7 headquarters at the Hoover Dam, where they find Megatron in cryostasis, which he has been in since Old Man Witwicky discovered him in the 30s. Simmons then reveals that humanity's experiments on Megatron's biology were responsible for a great number of technological advancements like the microchip, lasers, spaceflight, and cars, which explains why the Allspark is able to easily bring all sorts of technology to life later on in the film. The group is then shown the Allspark itself, an object that Simmons refers to as Sector 7's crown jewel, and you can tell that Simmons means this as the Sector 7 logo is literally a diamond with a cube in the middle. The Allspark has apparently been on Earth since 10,000 BCE. However, because Frenzy disguised himself as Mikaela's phone early on in the movie, he's able to relay the Allspark and Megatron's location back to his team of Decepticons. A team that includes Starscream disguised as a Lockheed Martin F-22A Raptor, Barricade as a 2007 Celine 281E police car, Brawl as a modified General Dynamics M1A1 Abrams tank, Bone Crusher as a Buffalo H MPCV Minesweeper, and Blackout in his Sikorsky MH-53J Pavlo 3 form. Holy shit, I didn't think I'd be able to do that. Brawl is actually mistakenly given the name Devastator in this movie, but Michael Bay decided to keep that name in the film because he thought it made that Decepticon sound more badass and imposing. But on the toys and marketing and whatnot, this Decepticon is referred to as Brawl. The actual character of Devastator would not show up until 2009's Revenge of the Fallen. Back at the Hoover Dam, the group is then brought to a room to watch how the Allspark can bring technology to life. And due to past experiments with the Allspark, claw marks can be seen on the walls. Marks that remind Tyrese Gibson's Sergeant Epps of the horror movie icon Freddy Krueger from 1984's Nightmare on Elm Street. But Glenn corrects him by saying that the marks are more like Marvel's Wolverine due to there being groups of 3 slashes instead of 4 slashes. Glenn then hands his Nokia phone to Simmons in order for Simmons to display the Allspark's technomutation abilities, quickly turning that phone into a psycho-killing transformer. An iPhone was actually originally intended to undergo metamorphosis during this scene, but Steve Jobs, the late CEO of Apple, didn't like the idea of one of his phones turning into a psycho-killer robot at all and didn't let the production do it, so the production had to opt for a Nokia phone instead, which in my opinion is far less realistic due to the fact that a Nokia phone is too damn durable to be manipulated by some dinky Allspark. And of course, during this phone's transformation, we can hear the classic transforming sound effect from the original series once again. And as the killer phone moves around, Simmons refers to that phone as the Energizer Bunny from Hell, referencing the popular Pink Bunny Energizer battery commercials. But then the Decepticons begin attacking the facility like jerks, forcing Sector 7 to free Bumblebee so he can miniaturize the Allspark and they can book it out of there before a bunch of killer robot vehicles kick them all in the asshole. And I don't even know why the government gave this cube to Sam specifically, because God knows his broke ass was just gonna sell it at an auction for $20,000 anyway. I'm just kidding, because this mini version of the Allspark actually did end up being sold for $20,100 on an online auction in 2007, which is kinda wild. The Decepticons then wake up Megatron from his cryogenic nap, with his first words being, "I am Megatron," as soon as he woke up, which is exactly what I do every morning when I wake up, because MT stands for Megatron. I don't know if you knew that, but Megatron's my father. I'm Megatron Jr. Megatron, voiced by actor Hugo Weaving, tells Starscream that he's failed him yet again.
You fail me yet again, Starscream.
Something that Megatron would often tell Starscream in pretty much every iteration of Transformers media. Optimus Prime's squad then rolls out to Mission City, with Optimus transforming into his Peterbilt 379 semi-truck, Ironhide into his 2006 GMC Topkick C4500, Ratchet into a 2004 Hummer H2 search and rescue vehicle, and Jazz into his 2007 Pontiac Solstice. And on his way there, Optimus and Bone Crusher get into a big robot scuffle on a highway. A scuffle that would see Bone Crusher tear a whole-ass bus in two. A stunt that Michael Bay achieved by using cables and explosives on an actual bus. And thanks to Glenn and Secretary Keller, a squad of F-22s are also scrabbling to Mission City, with one of the Air Force dispatchers saying the words, "Strike and Dark Star roll call." Dark Star was actually the name of one of Optimus Prime's spaceships in the second generation continuity. Most of the shots of the streets of the fictional Mission City were taken on the streets of downtown Los Angeles. And as the Rangers and Autobots prepare for an incoming Starscream, Bumblebee attempts to pick up a truck in front of the Los Angeles Orpheum Theater, with this truck being filled with Furbies, yet another toy owned by the company Hasbro. However, Starscream would blow up that truck, and consequently, Bumblebee's legs as well, forcing Mikaela to have to tow Bumblebee with a GMC tow truck. And to make matters worse, not long after this, we would watch Megatron ruthlessly tear the beloved Autobot Jazz in two atop LA's Tower Theater. The decision to kill Jazz off in the first movie was a deliberate one on behalf of the screenwriters, because his death would be majorly impactful for all those already familiar with that character from the series and whatnot. At the time, Jazz was considered the third most popular Autobot, so him being ripped apart at the hands of Megatron in this movie was meant to shake fans to their core while simultaneously bolstering Megatron's intimidation factor. Optimus then confronts Megatron and the two fight across the city until Megatron leaves to focus on grabbing that Allspark from one Samuel Witwicky, who is heading to a nearby building to set a flare so he can pass off the cube to the military. And while chasing Sam, Megatron flips over a silver car with a license plate that says Energon on it, with Energon of course being the pink rectangular energy source that Transformers consume in all the cartoons. Sam then accidentally drops the Allspark on the ground, giving life to a nearby Cadillac, a Mountain Dew vending machine, and an Xbox 360, with the Xbox 360 even doing its boot up sound effect when it comes to life. Sam then enters the building where he's supposed to send the signal from, with the building's exterior actually being the Michigan Central Station in Detroit. And when Sam gets to the roof of that building, the rooftop actually filmed was actually the rooftop of the May Company building in LA. And because Sam refused to give up the cube, Megatron would shoot Sam off of the building before Sam is caught by Optimus Prime, who tells Megatron that one shall stand and one shall fall.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
The same phrase that Optimus used in the beloved 1986 Transformers animated movie.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
But at the end of their scuffle, Sam would end up shoving the Allspark inside of Megatron instead of Optimus like Optimus wanted him to, killing Megatron completely until the next movie, where he's pretty much immediately resurrected. But for now, Megatron is temporarily dead forever. Hooray! But as he dies, Megatron's body actually makes a sad, slow, and painful version of the transforming sound effect from the original series, which was a nice touch. And like every Transformers film, the movie ends with a monologue from Optimus Prime himself, where he says the words, "There's more to humanity than meets the eye," another reference to the more than meets the eye Transformers slogan. And his monologue ends excellently with Linkin Park's What I've Done, one of the best song endings to a sci-fi movie ever. And what's funny is that Linkin Park's involvement in this movie only happened because Megan Fox was a fan of theirs who attended one of their concerts. The band, being huge Transformers fans themselves, heard that Fox was going to be part of the production and offered their services for the soundtrack. Megan Fox then relayed that information to Michael Bay and the gang, and they allowed Linkin Park to throw their banger, What I've Done, to the end of the movie. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this breakdown of the 2007 Transformers movie. What do you guys think of this movie? Let us know in the comment section down below. You guys can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, pretty much wherever I am on the internet. But most importantly, you guys can follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button and maybe even hitting that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. But like always, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. I love you guys so much and I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.